my name is Nathan, and today we're going to be working on this assignment right here. This is 5-15, should be in your book. Let me just start off by saying that I am a little bit under the weather, so I may be drinking a lot of water, taking pauses, clearing my throat and whatnot, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me clearly enough that we can get through this assignment together. Okay, so I'm starting with a title block A right here, and first thing you always want to do when you're starting an assignment is, let's take this, just so we can more easily select this side here. So first thing I want to do is change my title. So this is going to be a scale 1-to-1 drawing. All this is the scale factor. So this means that since this is 4.25, that is what it would be in real life, right? If that's 4.25 inches, then the drawing itself would be 4.25 inches. This was a building, for instance, a giant weird space building, then this would obviously not be 4.25 inches, maybe be 4.25 kilometers or something. But on your paper that you're holding in your hands, it'd be 4.25 inches. So you're basically saying the scale factor would be equivalent of if this is, the I guess fraction that you would say the scale of this to this. If it was every 1 inch is 2 inches for the object, it'd be 1 to 2, for instance. All right, moving on from that, we can do the date. Which for me is 2/13, but for you might be something completely different. And the title, this is 5-15, so I'll come over here, select to double click that, click inside so I don't overwrite, 5-15. Probably should put figure, but it doesn't say figure or problem, so that'll be fine. Okay, so let's start by deleting these, escape. Deleting these lines here so that we have a clear plate to work with our title block A. And let's look at our drawing and decide where to start. So, generally when you're starting a drawing, you want to look for one of two things. The first thing you always want to look for is coordinates. Because if there are coordinates, that's where you want to start. Now looking over this drawing, I do not see any coordinates. This means that as long as the drawing is within our bounds of our title block, then that's fine. It doesn't have to start at a specific coordinate. So if you don't have a coordinate, where do you start? Well, it is a good rule of thumb to look at all of the measurements that you have and start with the largest one. This is because the largest measurement might be larger than the title block that you're drawing inside of. You might realize, oh, my scaling factor needs to be higher. I can't fit inside of this title block. It'll also kind of give you information on how to orient your drawing if it does fit inside your title block. So looking here, I think the largest one is 6.72. Here on the bottom. I don't see anything larger than that. So that's what we're going to start with. So what this 6.72 is measuring is the complete back of this object all the way to the front. So we'll start with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a line on the object layer. I'm going to start close to the bottom. I'm going to click. I'm going to turn ortho on with F8. And then I'm going to make this 6.72 long. I'm going to put a couple of zeros in there. The reason I'm doing this is because if I don't specify, it might be 6.7216 something. But with these extra zeros, I know that I'm not going to get any strange leftover numbers. So now I pressed enter, and now I'm going to move the mouse upwards. Ortho's still on. And I'm just going to move this just up very high within the title block and click. Now I'm going to press escape. I'm going to come over to this other side. I'm going to snap to the end of this corner, and I'm also going to draw this up very high. So why did I draw these two lines? Well, the reason is because looking at this, I'm drawing this bottom line here, and then I know that my long bottom line will, part of it will be this line. Now, as far as my two vertical lines, I know that my long vertical line, some of it will be this line and some of it will be this line. And the same over here, some of my long vertical line will be this. So this kind of gives me some anchoring points. I know I have some of this line, or I know I have this line, and I know I have these three lines. I just don't know exactly where they are. I just know they're on this line somewhere. Okay, so now that we have done that, let's see. Other measurements we are given, we have, I guess the next thing we'll want to do is start worrying about these corners. So looking at these corners here, you can see that they are indeed rounded. Now, I know that this straight here is part of this line, and this one down here as well. So if we were to connect these two, I'd have a corner here. And this is kind of a slice of a circle out of that corner. So how do we get this rounded corner here? Well, if we look, we can see up here we have a measurement of what a circle here would be. And that is a radius of 0.68. So we know that if we take a circle with a radius of 0.68 and we were to slide it into this corner where it's touching these two walls and then cut off what's left over, that would create our corners. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to come over here to the circle tool. I'm going to click the drop down. And what I'm going to choose is the tan radius tool. So what is tan? Right? Tan simply means tangent. And tangent is a fancy geometry word for touching. So what I'm saying with this is that I am touching two objects. I want my circle to stay touching those two objects, and then I'm going to define the radius of that circle. Now that sounds exactly like what we need to do. So we need to touch these two walls, and then we know the radius that we need to define, which is 0.68. So first I'm going to select my first tangent, which would be this line. And I'm going to select my second tangent, which would be this line. And now I have to specify the radius, which was 0.68, if I'm remembering correctly. Gonna add some zeros to be sure. And escape. So now we have a circle is the radius that we want, and it is touching these walls. So the next thing I'm going to do is going to do some trimming. So you can either come up here and click up here, this trim tool, and then we can start to choose what we want to trim. So we do want to trim this corners, and we also want to trim this. And look at that, we have a rounded corner just like we wanted it. The next thing I'm going to use is, let's see, there's a couple ways we can do this. I believe the next thing we should do is draw these circles here. This is because due to these center lines, we know that these circles share a center with the circle we just drew. So if I use the center tool, which would be dim center or dimension center, so if I type DIMC, dim center, press enter, I can mouse over this and I can click. And now I've marked the center of that circle we drew earlier. Next I'll select here and I'll choose not radius, because of this symbol here. It would say R if it was radius. So we're going to choose diameter, and it says a diameter of 0.75, and it says times 4, so we know that these all have the same diameter and they are all the same. So 0.75, starting at the center. So I want to snap to the center right there to be the triangle, and I want 0.75, some extra zeros. just like so, we now have the corner circle as well. Okay, so at this point, we've gotten the corner drawn. We still don't know how much of this to cut off. We still don't know where to start this angle specifically. I guess we kind of do, because we could start from here. So what should we do next? I guess what we can do is we could finish up this corner here. So we have a measurement down here that says the center of this circle to the center of this circle is 3.75. And we can see in our drawing that the center of this circle strikes through this angled point right here. Right? So let's get this other circle drawn. I'm going to do a line tool. I'm going to snap to center. Make sure ortho is on. And then that was 3.75. 3.75, extra zeros. And I'm going to press escape. So now this should be the center of this circle here. So since these four circles are all the same, I'm going to select this circle, Control C for copy, Control V for paste, and I'm just going to place it anywhere. Next, I'm going to select the circle, use the Move tool, which is right here, and I select my base point. So I can mouse over this, and it'll show the snapping for the center of the circle. You might need to have your snapping settings set up here at the bottom for center. So I'm going to select the center of the circle, turn ortho off with F8. I'm going to snap to the end of that line there. And now we have our second circle. Next, I'm going to use the line tool again, turn orthographic back on, and we're just going to go straight down. I know that this crossing point is where this angle starts. I also know that this line is 1.55 and that the angle is 25 degrees. So I'll take another line, turn orthographic off. I'm going to start at this intersection, which is the X. I'm going to drag it out here. 1.55. I'm going to press tab, and now I'm at the angle. 25 degrees. Escape. Just like so, I now have that next line. I'm not given the length of this third line, but I do know that it ends where this line begins, and that it is 54 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the end of this point. I'm going to drag my line out past this one, tab over. I'm going to make this 54 degrees, and escape. So we got a little bit of a mess over here, so let's start cleaning that up. Let's use the trim tool once more. And let's trim this outside line, as well as these corners. Press escape, and I'm just going to delete this line completely. Now we are well on our way here to having this drawing completed. Okay, so next let's start finding out a little more about the center of the line, because we have the bottom part, for the most part, drawn all the way in. So the very center of this can be found in a couple of ways, right? One, if we could have done this earlier, before we cut off all these lines, we could have simply found the center of this line if, well, I guess we couldn't do that because we don't know the full vertical length. So instead of that, we'll do what we were planning on doing all along, and that is, if we look, we can see that the center of this circle to the center of the whole drawing is 2.00. Now we do have a center circle here, so we can go to the center pretty easily. So center of the circle, turn orthographic back on. We're going to go up by 2, and then we're going to press escape. Now we know that this is the direct center of the entire object. Now, next, if we look, we can see that the walls are 0.78 off of that center, or we can look over here, we're 1.56, which is basically twice 0.78. So now we know where the center is, and we know that that 0.78 off of each side will give us the walls. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a long line out, escape, line tool again, long line out, and then escape, just so I have a center line. Next, I'm going to select anywhere on this line, and I'm going to come down at 0.78, enter, and then I can either come over or go back up. If I go back up, I'll have to go the 0.78 twice, which is the 1.56. So let's see, 1.56, escape. And now we know that this line touches the walls of our drawing. So let's go ahead and extend that out. Let's draw a line from here out, escape, a line from here out. Now notice for all of these I have ortho on, so I know they're perfectly straight lines. If ortho was off, this would not work. Okay, now our drawing is looking very busy, so let's start chopping, shall we? Delete this line, and we'll delete this line. So we're left with just 3 lines. All right, we have our top wall, our bottom wall, and our center line. So what we will do is, since we have our 2 top and bottom wall here, we can always get our center line back because we can just throw a line in between these 2 and mark the center of that line. So I'm going to delete our center line. So looking here, we have our top and bottom walls. And on the left side, we know there's nothing in between them. So let's use our trim tool here, and let's trim this out. We can also go back and trim these sides here, escape, and then get these leftover lines. And there we are. We have a line going all the way across our drawing and coming straight down. So I guess another good easy next step would be to cut a notch out. We have a equilateral triangle here of 0.38. So line, snap on that corner there, and 0.38, enter, escape, another line, downwards, 0.38, enter, escape. Now you can't see these because I drew them all in the object layer. I could have made it more clear by putting them on a different layer, but if I mouse over, you can see how they turn white. Right? Now since those lines are on top, I should easily be able to snap and then turn ortho off and snap, escape, and there we go, that should be my cutout. So since these lines are on top, I'll select them first and delete them. And then now I'll have to trim these other lines. So I'll click the trim tool. If your trim tool doesn't trim right away, you might need to right click somewhere blank first, and then you can left click. But in any case, there we are. Okay, another drink of water here. Let me start finishing this up. All right. So, for the rest of our drawing, it seems we only have a few simple things. We have a cutout here, we have notch cutouts, and then we have this odd heart-shaped kind of cutout here. So, to work with most of these, it looks like we will need a center line. Let's go ahead and toss that one back in there. So, I'll click anywhere on this line, turn ortho on, it goes straight down. And then I can trim this. Right, and now I know that if I take a line and I put it in the center, make sure that you do have your midpoint snapping on for this. I can snap to the center, and I can bring it out all the way here, and then I can just turn around and bring it straight back, just like that. Press escape. So now I have a line that cuts through the center. I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to throw that on the center line, just so it stands out to me. And then I do have this object layer line under here that I'll have to get rid of later. But for now we're just using this for drawing, so let's not sweat it. Okay. So, there's a couple of things we can start with. we can easily start with these in any order because we do have all the information we need to start either one of them. So I say first, let's just go from right to left. So first we have this notch cut out. Now, due to the measurement up here of 1.37, we know where the center of this is. Now this is coming right off of this line right here. So it shouldn't be any problem to find that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a line here, and this will be, this doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use a dimension line so that it stands out from the other lines we've drawn. I'm going to select right here where this intersection is. I'm going to go to the left, 1.37, enter, escape. This is the center point of this circle here on this dimension line right here. Okay, so now there is a circle here, right? But how do we know what the size of the circle is? We're not given any information. Well, actually, if you look back over, since this is the entire notch and it starts and ends on both ends, we know that the radius will be the 0.78, right? And then we know that all the way across will be 1.56. So we'll go over here, and I guess we can just use the diameter tool. 1.56 will be our diameter, and our center is that where we just drew, that endpoint. So we'll select here, and then, what did I say that was? Such a short memory, 1.56, enter, just like so. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to put it on the object layer. Escape. I'm going to go back up here once again, object layer, because it will change it back. Alright, we don't need that dimension line that we drew, so we can get rid of that. And we don't need this line, because we just use that to find the center, so we can delete that. So now we have our cutout here. So, more trimming. Select the trim tool. Once again, if you can't trim right away, try right-clicking in a blank area, and that might let you trim. And then we will trim these lines, as well as the inside of this circle. Press escape, get rid of these extra lines here, and there we go, that's that cutout. So next we have these slots. These slots are squares, and they are 0.25 squares. So let's just go over here and use a new tool. Let's use the rectangle tool, because we've not used that one before. And then we can specify the first corner point. We're just going to select absolutely anywhere, because we're going to be moving this. And then now we can tab between the two sides of the square. So 0.25, tab over, 0.25, and there we go. That is our square. Now, where does the square go? Well, as we can see, this is centered due to this center line given right here. This is centered on these circles. So if we take a line, let's just throw on a center layer, why not? And we mouse over it, it'll give us the center to snap to, and we just turn ortho on and go all the way up, escape. I know that the center of this square and the center of this are the same. I'm sorry. I know the center of this square is aligned with this center line, and that the wall of this square is basically touching this wall here. So I want to make sure with my snapping that I have midpoint on, once again, and then I want to select this square, press M for move, enter, and I'll select my base point. I want to zoom in here, and I want to select the midpoint, the top midpoint of the square. It's very important. Turn ortho back off with F8. Scroll out, middle mouse wheel to move the camera, zoom in with the mouse wheel, and now I want to snap on this intersection like so. Pop. Simply some more trimming as we've done before. Escape, just like that. And there's our notch. Very easily done. Now next is probably the most confusing part, but it's easier than it looks once you break it up into pieces. So, we're given two radiuses here. That already is our first clue. that means that there will be two circles involved in this drawing. Now the first radius is quite large, and it's 1.42, and the second one is 0.58. So we see we have a circle that goes kind of like this, and then we have two smaller circles up here. Now thanks to these center marks here, we know that we have two circles here, and we have one circle in the center, right? So since we know we have one circle in the center, we know that the center of that circle will be aligned with our main center line. So we already know where the up-down of the center of the circle will be. We just have to find the left-right. Now, if we look, this can easily be done because we're given a measurement up here, 4.25 from the front end to the center. So that's everything we need to center our larger circle. So let's take our line here, and we'll just start somewhere up here high. And we'll go over. We want to make sure that we turn ortho on with F8, 4.25, enter. And then we're just going to go down through this entire drawing. Just like that, press escape. That's the center of our circle, right there. So let's hop on back over to the object layer. And the circle has a radius of 1.42. So we need our radius tool. Start here at this intersection, 1.42, enter. Escape. And there we go. There's our initial circle. So next, let's draw our smaller circles. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, hey, these smaller circles are aligned with this line. You can see it right there, you know? But this is where the layering and the center lines and whatnot are important, right? Since there is no center line drawn across here, that means that we aren't told for sure that this is an alignment here. There's no hidden line drawn across it or anything else. So if we were to try that, let's see, 0.58, right? Center right here. Enter. You can see that it's just not quite there. So where do these circles go then, right? Well, we know due to this center line here that it shares the center line with this circle, so we do have our left to right figured out. We know it's not going to be any further left or right than this line. Up or down wise, how do we know how far it goes? Well, since it is a part of this circle, we know that it must be tangent or touching it. So simply enough, if we just use this bottom circle here, if we just select it, use the move tool, set our base point as the quadrant of this circle. If you don't have that, you'll have to go to your snapping and turn on quadrant. And then we simply take this and we have ortho on so it snaps. And we want to just snap it to the end of this circle, just like that. See how easy that was? Okay, so now we can do some trimming. So we know we have the long circle on the left side and the short circle on the right side. Trim tool. Get rid of the long on that side. Escape just like so. And there we are. That bottom half is completely the same as our bottom half. Now, the next thing we have to do is do all of that all over again for the top side. It's a lot of work. So I guess we should start on getting drawing on everything. Or let's use a simple little shortcut. So I'm going to take my line tool here, anywhere. I'm going to draw it through, escape, use the trim tool, escape. What I'm trying to do here, I'm just trying to get a center line. So I'm going to select here and draw this through. Escape. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the trim tool, and I want to trim these two lines. Escape. I'm going to delete what I just drew, and as well as anything above this, where I only have my half drawing right here. Next, we're going to use a tool called the mirror tool to save us a lot of work. So first I want to select my entire object, and these squares here are simply marking the centers of these circles that we drew earlier. And then we're going to go up here. You see there is a mirror tool right there. I'm going to select the mirror tool, and it says specify first point of mirror line. So what this means is we're going to draw a line, and it's going to mirror our object across that line. Well, we want to mirror this touching these lines here because we just want to copy our other half of our drawing. So we're going to start on this endpoint here. Select. Second point, now we're simply deciding where it mirrors. Does it mirror over here? Obviously yes, but let's just look a little bit because you can mirror it like that. You can try mirroring it diagonally. Since I have ortho on, if I turn ortho off, it becomes much clearer to see how it works. If I turn ortho on, I want to mirror across this line here. Simply click, erase source object, no, and there we are. Complete drawing, just like so. Now, if you have any trouble with any of these other lines, you can simply delete them and redraw them, or you could try grouping them. But generally, if you're doing a dimension tool and you mouse over, you're going to notice it only wants to draw half that line. So instead, you want to go use linear, select, and then select like so. Okay, I believe that is our entire drawing, if I'm not missing anything. I'm very tired, so I could totally be missing something, but that looks correct to me. If you have any questions, you can shoot me an email, and thank you for watching.